This evening, first, charged with murder, the captain of the MV Barima and two senior crew members are remanded to prison over the ferry disaster that claimed 73 lives. But defense attorneys are calling it a complete injustice, and legal heavyweights warn the charges could sabotage the commission of inquiry itself. Also, the vessel is likely to stay on the seabed. The Prime Minister signals the MV Barima will not be salvaged. French divers call the wreck too dangerous to enter, and grieving families accuse the government of giving up while more than 30 of their loved ones remain missing. Then, nearly $55 billion approved in one sitting. Parliament greenlights supplementary funding for gas to energy, housing, roads and agriculture, with the biggest slice going towards delivering cheaper electricity to Guyanese homes. Meanwhile, betting shops in every corner and gambling apps in every pocket. The Gaming Authority bill lands in the National Assembly, promising tighter regulation of an industry that religious leaders say is tearing at the families of vulnerable communities. And ICE is expanding like never before, with billions in new funding and a nationwide recruitment drive under the Trump administration. Supporters call it border security. Critics call it a crisis of accountability. Those stories and more coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for July 28, 2026. I'm Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. First up, the captain of the ill-fated MV Barima and two senior crew members were today remanded to prison after being jointly charged with murder in connection with the ferry disaster that claimed dozens of lives off the Essequibo coast. Captain Kevin Prince, Chief Mate Rondell Dwayne Roberts, and Goods Superintendent Delon Granderson appeared before Chief Magistrate Judy Latchman at the Georgetown Magistrates Court, where the indictable charge was read. The trio was remanded to prison, and the matter was transferred to the Charity Magistrates Court for August 3, 2026. In a statement, the Ghana Police Force said the charges were instituted following legal advice from the Director of Public Prosecutions. The three employees of the Transport and Harbour Department were charged with murder under common law in relation to the deaths of passengers aboard the MV Barima. Authorities have confirmed 73 deaths, while at least 30 people remain missing. Speaking to reporters outside the courthouse, Defense Attorney Dexter Todd addressed the charges after representing the accused.
The primary persons who will have to talk at the COI is the captain of the vessel. The captain of the vessel will have to appear before a COI. Now this man is in prison. And then you're going to have a second issue. There's something we call sub judice, meaning that if a matter is before one court, then not even a commission can look into the affairs of that matter. So there are going to be barriers to the extent that the commission can dive into things.
Todd said this is a complete and unfair injustice. He noted the investigation could not be completed in such a short time, considering the complexity of the matter. Experts are needed to assist with the investigation, and that is why there is a COI, he added. Meanwhile, attorney at law Nigel Hughes has criticized the decision to lay murder charges, arguing that the legal threshold for murder requires proof of intention to kill or cause grievous bodily harm. Hughes also questioned whether the prosecution could prevent the accused from giving evidence before the commission of inquiry, noting that any testimony they provide could potentially be used against them in future criminal proceedings. He warned that this could deprive the inquiry of evidence from key witnesses and undermine efforts to establish exactly what led to one of Ghana's deadliest maritime disasters. The case has intensified national debate over accountability. On a different note, the National Assembly on Monday approved a staggering $54.89 billion in supplementary funding to accelerate key national projects spanning energy, housing, infrastructure, and agriculture. The funding package, presented by Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, directs its largest share, $19.09 billion, to the Office of the Prime Minister to support gas-to-energy project, fueling an accelerated work program aimed at delivering electricity to Guyanese households at significantly reduced costs once completed. The Ministry of Housing was the second largest beneficiary, securing $17.5 billion to fast-track infrastructure, development, and construction projects nationwide. The Minister of Public Works picked up $8.5 billion, split between $6 billion for miscellaneous roads and drainage works, and $2.5 billion earmarked for hinterland roads. Agriculture also received a significant boost, with $4.5 billion approved for the Ministry of Agriculture to fund subsidies and contributions to local organizations, including the Ghana Rice Development Board and the Ghana Sugar Corporation. Smaller but notable allocations rounded out the package: $496.3 million for coastal water supply works, $600 million for maintaining hinterland and coastal airstrips under the Ministry of Public Utilities and Aviation, $337.9 million for building rentals under the Ministry of Health, and $60 million for the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Of the total $54,889,259,163 approved, $4.75 billion will go towards current expenditure, while the bulk, $50.14 billion, has been allocated for capital expenditure to drive forward the government's ongoing development agenda. In a stark shift from earlier promises of a relentless recovery mission, the government has effectively decided against salvaging the sunken MV Barima, with Prime Minister retired Brigadier Mark Phillips indicating the vessel is likely to remain on the seabed of the Essequibo coast near Iron Point permanently. Speaking on the sidelines of Monday's National Assembly sitting, Phillips said bringing in additional foreign divers will not change the situation, despite grieving families continuing to demand a full salvage operation to recover their loved ones and the vessel itself. The vessel is likely to remain there as is, Phillips said, defending the specialist teams already deployed, including French military divers alongside local personnel, and insisting further outside help would not alter the outcome. He acknowledged search efforts have stalled, with no additional bodies found and attempts to right the vessel unsuccessful. The French dive team described grim conditions at the wreck site, zero visibility, strong currents, and a fragile hull that makes recovery extremely dangerous. It's too dangerous for us to enter, a spokesperson added, adding the wreck's weak structure makes salvage very, very hard to do. Fueling family suspicion, a draft declaration of agreement was circulated to relatives over the weekend, proposing the wreck be designated to a permanent memorial left undisturbed in its present resting place. Some relatives are now accusing the government of trying to permanently abandon salvage efforts and potentially compromise evidence ahead of the upcoming Commission of Inquiry. President Dr. Mohamed Irfan has maintained that any decision will depend entirely on families' wishes, sharing a video briefing showing relatives viewing live footage of the operation. Still, many family members insist Ghana has the resources to hire specialized international salvage firms and are urging authorities not to give up permanently. As of the latest figures, 76 people survived the tragedy, 73 bodies have been recovered, and more than 30 remain missing. Stick around when we return. Government tables Gaming Authority Bill, and Ghana Development Bank Bill passes, opening doors to interest-free financing for small businesses.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road, Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. The National Assembly passed the Ghana Development Bank Bill 2026 on Monday, paving the way for a new financial institution designed to tackle one of the biggest hurdles facing the country's small and medium-sized enterprises: access to affordable financing. Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, told the Assembly that the legislation directly addresses a long-standing challenge for entrepreneurs, noting that while small and family-owned businesses have long driven Guyanese economic development, access to capital has remained a major barrier to growth. This bill seeks to establish a development bank that will provide small loans to small and medium-sized enterprises in Guyana, loans up to $3 million free of interest and free of collateral, Dr. Singh said, adding that the bank will help unlock a new wave of entrepreneurship and support businesses that might not qualify for traditional financing. Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa said the bank will extend economic opportunities to every region, including rural and hinterland communities, calling it a game changer for small farmers, for the farmers in the hinterland, and for the fisherfolk and for agro-processors. The bill seeks to remove barriers that have kept many Guyanese from turning their ideas into viable businesses. It aims to support farmers, manufacturers, tourism operators, artisans, women-led enterprises, young entrepreneurs, and indigenous people who have long engaged in entrepreneurship through farming, craft production, and trade. Yet affordable financing has often been out of reach. Moving on, the government has introduced the Gaming Authority Bill in the National Assembly, paving the way for tighter regulation of Ghana's growing gambling industry. The proposed legislation comes after repeated calls from religious organizations and other stakeholders for stronger oversight amid concerns about the social impact of gambling, including addiction, financial hardships, and its effects on families and vulnerable communities. The bill also fulfills a commitment made by Vice President Barjaglio last October when he announced plans to reform the sector. He had warned that gambling had expanded beyond casinos and hotels, with thousands of betting shops and mobile betting apps making gambling more widely accessible. The legislation is expected to be sent to a special select committee at the next sitting of Parliament, where its provisions will be examined in details before returning to the House. According to the government, the reforms are aimed at improving regulations of the gaming industry while addressing the social and economic challenges created by its rapid expansion. So going after the break, US and France clash at the UN over human rights votes, and Keiko Fujimori sworn in as Peru's first female president.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again. Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening, I'm Dominic Tonight. Venezuela pulls out of the International Criminal Court, but expert warns the ICC investigation continues. The US and France clash at the Security Council. Peru swears in its first female president, and ICE gets a $1 billion expansion under Trump. We will begin in South America, where Venezuela has formally notified the United Nations of its withdrawal from the Rome Statute, the treaty establishing the International Criminal Court. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez ordered the move, with Foreign Minister Felix Pacencia calling the decision firm and irrevocable. The United States welcomed the withdrawal. Experts warned the ICC can still continue its investigation into alleged crimes against humanity in Venezuela, despite the country's departure from the court. A rare diplomatic dispute has erupted between the United States and France at the United Nations Security Council, exposing tensions between the two longtime allies. More from Al Jazeera.
The summertime escalation.
Tensions boiling over between France and the United States in the UN Security Council. UN cameras did not capture the exact moment when the US delegation walked out during a French speech, but a wide shot of the room revealed empty seats where the US normally sits. When the US representative came back into the chamber, he explained Washington's anger at Paris.
That is why we walked out during France's intervention. This disingenuous grandstanding is tiresome, but we have tolerated it out of a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect as P5 members.
The French envoy asked for the floor to respond.
We this year celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States, and everyone is all too aware that France took part in those celebrations. A few days ago, the Statue of Liberty, not very far from here, was lit up.
The grievance behind the walkout was not Ukraine, the subject of the meeting. It was instead a vote taken in the General Assembly 3 days earlier on the man who runs the UN's Human Rights Office. Member states approved a second 4-year term for High Commissioner Volker Turk, 144 in favor, 10 against, 13 abstentions. The United States has been a sharp critic of Turk despite his overwhelming global support. Over the weekend, the French government mocked the U.S. over the vote, posting on social media, "The U.S. used to be a beacon of human rights, not anymore. Today it stands alongside North Korea, Nicaragua, Mali, and Russia, isolated, and the world no longer listens to it. Hashtag America alone." U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz responded, saying France deflects on its shameful vote to coddle some of the world's human rights abusers. It was that back-and-forth tension that ultimately culminated in the U.S. walkout against France on Monday. The Council has seen hostilities play out between permanent members in the past, but normally it's between Moscow and Washington. This is different. Two longtime allies that are now sparring. A sign, perhaps, of how polarizing some issues have become. Gabriel Elizondo, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.
Keiko Fujimori has been sworn in as Peru's first female president, marking a historic moment in the country's political history and a return to the presidential palace 26 years after her father, former President Alberto Fujimori. Al Jazeera's Mariana Sanchez reports.
Keiko Fujimori returns to the presidential palace after 26 years. Her father was the late Alberto Fujimori. She made history by becoming the country's first elected female president. Keiko followed on her father's footsteps, inheriting his political legacy and a nation that is deeply fractured. Fujimori is the 10th president in a decade. On her 4th consecutive attempt, she managed to gather the support of Peruvians who credit the late Fujimori for defeating the Shining Path insurgency and stabilizing the economy. People on the streets are hopeful she will rein in the chaos.
She has promised to put an end to extortion so we can work in peace, and just as her father brought order to the country, she will too.
Peruvians say Fujimori must deliver results right away. One of Fujimori's most pressing challenges will be to face the El Niño phenomenon. Experts say it is likely it will be severe in the coming months. Already thousands of birds and seals have died. The ocean temperature is at least 6 degrees warmer than usual. Richard Vega says fishermen are already having trouble to make ends meet and demands immediate action.
We are affected. It would be very good if they gave us a bonus to provide us with financial support because we've no other means of survival.
Partners.
Fujimori won the election by less than 50,000 votes. Now she promised to rule like her father, still pledged to distance herself from authoritarian ways. But for the families of victims of the late Fujimori's government, it's been decades waiting for justice. It was a razor-sharp win, and many are skeptical she'll deliver on her campaign promise and govern for all Peruvians. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Lima.
The U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement Agency is undergoing a major expansion under Trump administration, backed by billions of dollars in funding and a nationwide recruitment drive. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher reports.
Donald Trump likes ICE and the job they're doing in getting undocumented migrants out of America.
They shouldn't be here. I'm getting them out.
350,000 people in the first part of 2026, according to official figures, fueled by a multi-billion-dollar budget passed by Congress to supersize ICE.
Leave me alone!
Attention law enforcement.
It brought an unprecedented hiring drive.
Join ICE and help us catch the worst of the worst.
220,000 people applied for the posts, attracted by some of the benefits. A $50,000 signing on fee. No college education required. It used to be you had to be between 21 and 40 to work for ICE. That simply became anyone over the age of 18.
But you can't be any geek off the street. You gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean, earn your keep.
But the speed in putting many of them on the street has led to questions about training, temperament and tactics. Two recent high-profile fatal shootings haven't helped. One in Maine and one in Texas, both during attempted traffic stops. The latest shootings brought new calls for more of these to be deployed, body cameras. The idea that one member of every team would have one, and the idea has a big supporter in Donald Trump's border czar.
I want the American people to see what that ICE officer sees when he takes action. And I think it's going to help ICE with the false media that's out there about it.
Immigration was a huge driver for Trump's 2024 election win.
I say deport all illegals. We need to. We have to. We have absolutely no choice.
What happened to taking the drug dealers down? Not innocent people. That's not what you said, President Trump.
But a new poll reveals melting support for ICE. 48% of Americans want it abolished. 56% thinks it uses too much force. 54% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of immigration, making a key issue a possible political liability, with midterm elections racing closer. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Thanks, Dominique. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is the 3D event forecast. And that's it with the 2 headline news for this Tuesday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. You can tune in tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. for rebroadcast and at 7 p.m. for more news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other.